So how is everyone today?
Good.
Oh, perfect game.
You know, it's not like this is the first Sunday that I've been up here. It's not the first Sunday that I've asked this question. Oh, thank you for that.
Love that.
So it's not like it's the first time I've asked you this question of how are you today? So
Perfect.
I need you to tap into, because, and it's not just because I'm asking this question that I want the energy of, but it's because of what we're going to be talking about and how you tap into that energy anytime, anywhere, no matter what. So once again, how are you today? Keep that in the forefront of your mind. Because even when you're feeling whatever you may be feeling, what you are is fantastic, amazing, whole, perfect, and complete, etc. So, before we get into what we're talking about today, let us review. The first Sunday of the month, we talked about what?
The thing itself.
The thing itself. And what is the thing itself? God, me, love, life, okay. Second Sunday, we talked about
What it does.
what it does, and what does it do? So now, and you don't have to yell this out, but think about it. So you said love, you said life, you said you said all of these things. So what does it do? What does love do? What does God do? What does life do? What does peace and beauty do? Then the third Sunday, last Sunday, we talked about
What it does.
How it works.
Thank
How
you.
it works.
So how it works. So once again, how does God work? How does life work? How does beauty work? How does it set, like how does it work? Right? Because it's very important, because those are the three basic foundational pillars that this week now builds up on. And what we're talking about today, now the specific chapter is called, I don't need that, I have this one. How to use it. Dun, 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 I should have dun, 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 dun. How to use it. And it's a great chapter title, but a more accurate chapter title would be How to Use It Consciously. Because you're already using it. You're already using it. Now, some of us would say, but. How many vocalists in the room? Okay, when you were learning to be vocalist, did a vocal instructor say, today's lesson is I'm going to teach you how to breathe? Like, is that a lesson? Now the thing is, they're really not teaching you how to breathe, because you already know how to breathe. They're teaching you how to breathe effectively, consciously, in order to project, in order to sing. When you're learning meditation, anybody here ever take a meditation class? Same thing. One of the first things you learn in meditation is how to breathe. But you already came into meditation learning how to breathe. You know how to breathe from the day you were born. You already know how to breathe. You're already doing it. You were already breathing. So the meditation teacher is teaching you how to now breathe in a way that connects you to the truth of your being. So you're not learning how to breathe. You are learning how to breathe more consciously, more effectively, in order to gain peace and calm and alignment. So there's a lot of stuff that we could now spiral off of. How many of us already know how to think? Okay, but you follow me. We are already thinking beings. Okay? How many feel? You feel something. You feel love. You feel anger. You feel bitterness. You feel something. So we already know how to feel. We already know how to communicate, whether it's verbally, whether it's through sign language, whether it's through writing, whether it's through texting, whether it's through music, whether it's through dance. We communicate. We are already communicating beings. So all of the things that I mentioned last week about thought and word and feeling and deed, coming into alignment, you already are doing. Question is, are you doing it in a conscious and effective manner in order to demonstrate and manifest what you desire and deserve in your life? That's the question. So anybody remember last week when I mentioned the Science of Mind magazine? Anybody remember me mentioning it?
Yes.
Did anybody do what I asked you to do when I mentioned it?
Yes, I know.
Okay, thank you, Mary Ann. Okay, no. Now, the reason I mention it is because Reverend McDowell, in the article called Hardcore Metaphysics on page 24, basically says the gist is, new thought is about what are you demonstrating? Like, that's the root question. What are you showing up as? What are you manifesting? What are you demonstrating? What are you allowing God to move in, through, and as you? How are you showing up? And I would venture to say, if we sat down with that and we really looked at our lives, it's a little bit of a hard pill to swallow. And take all of the guilt and shame and all that other stuff, blame, all that stuff about, I manifested it, blah, blah, blah. Take that off. We're not even talking about that, because that is not going to do anyone any good. What we talk about is where you are right here, right now. Be accountable moving forward. Nothing about that back then. From this point moving forward. Maya Angelou says, and Jan Van Zandt say, when you know better, you do better. So the question is, from right here, right now, January 27th, 2019, are we willing to know better, to think better, to speak better, to feel better, to move and have our beingness as a better incarnation of the divine? That's what it comes down to. So this question of how do I use it comes down to, because once again, we're not talking about the theoretical stuff about when God is blah, 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 in the universe. And that's great to theorize about that. That's great. I love the mental exercise, but ultimately it comes down to God in me, as me, is me. How am I using all that I am as a divine being? How am I using that? I have love. How am I using my love? Because my love is God's love. There's only one mind. That mind is God's mind. That mind is fill in the blank. And that mind is my mind now. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is fill in the blank. And that life is my life now. So how am I living it? How am I thinking it? How am I showing up? That's the question. How am I using I? How am I using this to show up? To talk the talk and walk the walk. Forget all the other stuff. Forget all the other classes and all the books and all the stuff, because it comes down to, because you can read this cover to cover multiple times. You can go through it and you can start highlighting stuff till it's like, why didn't you just highlight the whole, every page? And you can do it over and over and over again. Like you read it the first time, you highlight it in pink. You read it the second time, you highlight it in yellow. And then you start changing colors and you go back. So now the entire book is a rainbow, because it's like, well, that doesn't matter. If what's in here, because when I was, in my former Baptist Christian days, the idea was being a Sunday Christian. You show up on Sunday and you're all holy for the Lord. Come Monday, first day of the week, back to work, everything you heard on Sunday is like, ugh. And then Friday, you can't wait till Friday so you can go out to the club, so you can go back to church and have all your sins absolved. Like, really? For real? For real. So this is no different. There's so I'm going through all of my books in storage, right? And I'm looking for nothing in particular, but just looking for, like, what do I have? Because A couple of weeks ago, Tracy and I went to DC. There was a screening of the Howard Thurman story, Backs Against the Wall, right? So it was basically the story of Howard Thurman's life. So we go and I'm like reinvigorated, like, oh, where are all my Howard Thurman books? I need to, so I'm going through trying to, because I don't want to go on Amazon and buy books that I, already own. So I'm looking through stuff, and while I didn't find them yet, because there were like 50 crates of books to go through, what I found was, interestingly enough, there are a couple other books that I own. So, the Buddha walks into a bar. That's not the beginning of a joke, it's the title of a book. Calm down for a second. The Buddha walks into a bar, a guide to life for a new generation. The Buddha walks into the office, a guide to livelihood for a new generation. Both of those by Lodro Rinzler. Then Barbara Ann Keffler. How would Buddha think? 1,501 right intentional teachings for cultivating a peaceful mind. Then her other book, What Would Buddha Say? 1,501 right speech teachings for communicating mindfully. And then, How Would Buddha Act? 801 right action teachings for living with awareness and intention. Now, I mention that because what if this book was called A Religious Science Practitioner, which is all of us, not just the licensed folks, a religious scientist, a metaphysician walks into their job. A metaphysician, a religious science person, a student of the science of mind, goes home for their family reunion. The religious scientist who gets into an argument. The religious scientist, you get my meaning?
Yes.
What would that book be instructing us? What would our right intentions? What would our right actions? What would those things be? And the funny thing is, we don't need a book for it, right? We already know. For the most part, if we sat down one by one, individual interviews, we all know enough. I mean, what's that saying? Everything we ever needed to know, we learned in kindergarten. We know how to be nice to people. We choose not to. We know how to love. But we may have been beaten and bruised and scarred enough that the scar tissue won't let love in. But we know. The fact that you are here says that on some level, you know what the truth of your being is. And this isn't even about remembering it, because there is that element of you. What was the word or phrase of the day that Diane gave to Robert? Eternal life. Life eternal. There is that part of you, the essence of you that knows and knows that it knows. And we all know that. Everyone in here, on some level, some way, shape, or form, you have had, and you may not have known it, you've had a mystical experience. You have felt and touched and heard and been overwhelmed by the love of the universe, the oneness of God. Whatever we call it, you've had it. You've experienced it. It's like sitting down in a restaurant and you had this amazing meal. It's like, oh my God, it was so good. The next time you sit down for dinner, do you wish, I want that? Or do you learn how to enjoy what you have? Do you always go after, I'm going to the next restaurant, hoping that this meal is just as good as, and then you spend your life searching for the next right, delicious meal? So it's not about enjoying the meal, it's about finding the next delicious meal. And if you're focused on finding the next delicious meal, you don't have time to enjoy the delicious meal because you're already looking for the next. So I want to read, because I don't know how many of you can read this. It's a little small for those who are in the back. The universal mind contains all knowledge. It is the potential ultimate of all things. To it, all things are possible. To us, as much is possible as we can conceive according to law. Should all the wisdom of the universe be poured over us, we should yet receive only that which we are ready to understand. This is why some draw one type of knowledge and some another, and all from the same source, the source of all knowledge. So what we are doing is, because we're already using it, what we are doing is expanding the container of our consciousness to be able to experience ever more love, ever more joy, ever more grace, ever more health and well-being, ever more laughter, ever more. That's the whole point. So every day it comes down to asking ourselves, am I today being an effective steward of the isness and allness of God? We all have some form of belongings and possessions. Are we being good stewards of them? Whether it's a jacket, whether it's... I just had you because Dr. Ronnie mentioned it. Is it, you know? But if I go home and I take the jacket off and I toss it on the floor, well, one, Tracy wouldn't let me do that. But if that's what I did, am I being a good steward of this? Am I being a good steward of my mala beads? Am I being a good steward of my shoes? Am I being a good steward of my body temple? Am I being a good steward of my relationships? How am I showing up as someone who understands and respects all of the ways that God is showing up? Tracy used to laugh at me years ago when, rather than killing a bug in the house, I would do my darndest to catch it and put it outside. Now, there are days where Ray gets a little frustrated. I'm trying to save you! Get in the cup! Get in! This is not what you like, right? But that's what now there are far less days. Tracy does that far more than I do. But the point is, and I don't know what made me do it, but at some point it was, I want to be a good steward of. And if I'm saying, 3 steps back, Tracy and I have noticed over the last couple of weeks, there are certain mail carriers, whether it's FedEx, UPS, or the Postal Service, who will not come up onto the porch, knock on the door, or ring the bell. They'll toss the package onto the stoop, and they go. And then there are others who come up and they ring the bell and knock on the door. And Tracy was like, I don't understand why, it's only 3 steps. That's actually what she sounds like some days. I'm going to record it one day, just so you know. And I said, Tracy, remember way back when we blessed the house and we said that no one can come towards the door if they are not coming with love and the higher life-affirming energy of the divine? What if the postal services are being blocked because of how we bless the house? Like, what if that's why that one can, those 3 can't? So for me, my thing is now, this bug, this life form, this emanation of God has shown up for a reason. Maybe it's showing up for a reason to simply remind me that God is everywhere, in everything, and to be compassionate. I really don't like you because you got 19 legs, but I'm going to try to get you outside before you crawl on my arm. But the point is, how am I being a steward of life? All life. The car is life. Because even the inanimate objects are alive with God energy. So it's all alive. How are we being good stewards of all of this stuff? That's what it comes down to. And in our lives, as people who, go to whatever hardware store you may go to, or whatever tool chest you have, or if you're an artist, you have certain brushes, or you have certain tools and instruments. that you use in your life. If you are someone who cooks, you have certain knives and forks and spatulas that are yours for particular jobs, etc. Unlike me, I have one fork. I don't care if it's a salad fork or it's a fork. And I'm going to use it for my cereal. Like, it works for whatever I'm using it for, right? But as spiritual people, we have to understand that there are specific tools that we do have at our disposal. Are we using the tools? Are we using the right tool for the right job? Does it make sense for me to try to use a hammer, which some men do, use a hammer for, you actually should use a Phillips screwdriver for that? No, this is working fine! Yeah, okay, now it's broken, now we need a new one. How many of us are using the wrong tool in the wrong way? And not necessarily wrong meaning as a judgment, but wrong meaning in the most ineffective way possible. Because meditation is what you're doing right now. Meaning, you're breathing. If you are breathing, then you are meditating. Robert's playing. You're not just listening. You are in, the music is going, not only is it going into your ears because you're listening, because it's vibrating your eardrum, but because it's vibrating into the very flesh and bone and sinew of your being. So the music is actually penetrating you and going into the walls. How is that not some form of meditation or spiritual practice? But what do? We will say, Kim, I'm sorry, I wanted to take that class that you did on meditation, but when I took it with you before, I failed because I still can't meditate for an hour. Well, who said you have to meditate for an hour? Who said that when you sit down to meditate, you have to sit in absolute silence and calm your mind and empty your mind of every thought? But there's one. There's one. The fact that I'm thinking there's one means I'm counting, which means I'm not meditating. Oh, I can't do it! And then we quit. So what if part of the tool is simply giving ourselves the grace and ease to know that if God is all there is, then God is showing up right now where we are, in, through, and as us. And like I said last week, if that's the case, then when you are washing the dishes, it's God washing the dishes. When you are feeding the cat or emptying the kitty litter, it's God emptying a basket, which is God, of charcoal, which is God, and which is God, because it's all God. So when you are doing that, how is that not now a spiritual practice? The only thing that makes this or this or this a spiritual practice is our labeling of it. When we say, this is more spiritual than that. But you know that there are Buddhist monks that when they're washing dishes, and they are so mindful of the feeling of the water as it goes through their fingers. The smell of, if there's soap, the smell of, or the fragrance of the breeze, like they're present. It's not, I need to hurry up and get these done so I can go do Kung Fu or whatever. Like it's not, it's being present to the degree that there is not monk and bowl, but it's simply spirit. So, and I know you can't read this. So, for those Harry Potter fans in the room, okay, yeah, I'm gonna figure some of y'all better read it. So, Dumbledore says to Harry, words are, in my not so humble opinion, our most inexhaustible source of magic, capable of both inflicting injury and remedying it. Our words. And in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was made flesh. We are the divine demonstration of the Word. Words. Our bodies are. Our minds are. All that we are is an inexhaustible source of the divine showing up. If we allow it. It's already happening. You're already thinking, feeling, speaking, moving beings. So why not do it in the direction of that which is life-affirming? Yes, sir. Why not do it in the direction of that which demonstrates wealth and prosperity? Why not demonstrate it in the direction of what I say as whole, perfect, and complete? Then how does a person who knows that they are whole, how do they show up to work on Monday? Someone who knows that they're perfect in their essence, that even when they make a mistake by the standards of the world, they still know that that which I am as the truth of my being is innately, divinely perfect. How does that person show up? This gentleman, Frederick Douglass, I prayed for 20 years, but received no answer until I prayed with my legs. Treat and move your feet. Don't just pray. Don't just meditate. Don't just show up for service. Don't just take a class. Don't just read a book. Until the words in this book become the vision of a life that you are living, then they are empty words in a book that may as well be dead with the gentleman who wrote them. Are the words alive in your mind? Is that which God is, that which the universe is it alive in your mind? The one side, yes, clearly it is, because God is all there is. What I'm saying is, are you consciously aware and activating it? Like I said last week, electricity existed already way before. The people was like, oh, it's electricity. Ooh, magic. I'm talking about electricity existed way back when somebody was like, electricity existed then. They just didn't know how to plug into it, tap into it, tune into it. Just like right now, all of the radio stations in this area are right now, right here. But if we don't have a radio to turn on and tune into the various frequencies, we can't hear what they're broadcasting. If that which God is always broadcasting love, light, joy, power, presence, wholeness, perfection, magnificence, divinity, it is always broadcasting that. Are we turned on and tuned into the frequency of today in the earlier in the news, you are whole, you are perfect, you are complete. All that I am, you are. There is nothing you need to do. You already are it. All that it is, you are. Tune into that. So anytime, and the great barometer of, the great way to determine how am I using it? How am I using it? What am I feeling? So getting grounded and getting very mindful in, what am I feeling? Do I feel good? Because even in the midst of something that is going haywire, because remember, a couple of years ago, didn't think it was possible. A couple of years ago, at my brother's funeral, I feel happy, even though. Why? How is it possible to grieve and be happy? Because the happy is the basis of my being. It is not reliant on or dependent upon some external outside force. I am happy because I am. And I am happy showing up as grief. I am happy showing up as anger. These, anger and grief, will fade away. The essence of my being is always life eternal, joy eternal, happiness eternal, the infinite I am eternally showing up. So let's ask ourselves in any moment, what am I feeling? Get grounded. What am I feeling? We spend more time focusing on what we're going to wear half the time than what we're thinking. I'm going to just throw this on. But a lot of folks actually spend time. Does this go with this? Is this like, how's my hair? Like, is there anything in there? Like, we do a whole bunch of checking to make sure when it comes to this stuff. How many men spend more time cleaning and polishing and focusing on their cars than on their relationships?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Right? So it's very easy for us to, we're already doing it. We already know how to focus and how to put our attention. Question is, am I willing to move my attention onto that which is life eternal, that which is divine, that which is sacred, that which is holy? No one can do it for us. No amount of sermons, no amount of showing up on Sunday, no amount of sacred service, no amount of tithing, no amount of any of that is going to change the person who is unwilling to change their mind and change their heart and change their speech and change how they use their legs to move and walk the walk. None of it changes until we do. Let's pray. Simply allowing that which the body knows to do to breathe itself. Surrendering and anchoring in this breath. Knowing that in this breath is absolute peace, absolute joy, absolute divinity. And as the breath comes in, my body is made more alive and more alive with that which this breath brings to me, which is life. This breath reminds me that this is life, and I inhale. And I exhale gratitude for this breath, for this life. And so from this place of allowing and surrendering of the breath, I speak what I know, that which God is all there is. The infinite I am, the infinite source, the all that is, the thing itself, the one mind, life, eternal, is all there is. Showing up in, through, and as everything, the seen, the unseen, and the yet to be seen. The heard, the not heard, and the yet to be heard, the manifest, the unmanifest, and the yet to be. It is all of it, and so much more. And that which it is, I am. Individualized, incarnate in the flesh, right here, right now. And what is true for me must be true for everyone in this room. Everyone on Facebook Live, everyone on YouTube, everyone who wasn't able to be here today, who is doing Bedside Baptist today. All that God is all that all are. Because God is all there is. A circle whose circumference is nowhere, whose center is everywhere. Every single one of us is the center, the epicenter of that which is the divine. And knowing this, I know that God being right here, right now, the mind of God is present right here, right now. The love of God is present right here, right now. The power of God is present right here, right now. The wisdom of God is present right here, right now. The infinite wellness of God is present right here, right now. And as I avail my mind, my consciousness, my being to receive, to know, and to live from that knowing, it must show up. According to law, it must show up. And so I speak this in gratitude because I know that right here, right now, there is a willingness in me to expand even more. There is a willingness to grow and evolve and shine brighter and brighter and even more and even more and even more. And as I avail myself and shift and change, I know that my world, my life, that which I have dominion and power over, must shift and change and transmogrify and be transformed and transcended by the same law of spirit. So I move forward in gratitude knowing that God is on the move. Love is on the move. Transformation is on the move. I speak this word also knowing that right here, right now, our brothers and sisters who are involved in the Baltimore ceasefire are also immersed in, surrounded by, infused in the energy of ease, grace, and peace. So that their work, their legs on the ground, their hands in the soil, their lights, their love, their expansive beingness is shifting and changing the very fabric of form and function of concrete and asphalt, of man, woman, and child, that the day is already in the mind of God, that there is nothing that needs to be ceased, fired, because nothing is being fired other than the divine inspiration of a community. The fire of life being renewed. So I speak this knowing that we all play a part. I speak this knowing that I know what is mine to do. I speak this in gratitude knowing that it already exists in the mind of God, and what is in the mind of God is already done. It is already so. So together as a beloved community, we declare, we affirm, and we announce to the universe that is already conspiring for its own good as us. And so it is.
So it is.
Amen.